Rebel fighters from the Free Syrian Army who oppose the government of Bashar al-Assad are preparing for battle in the province of Idlib, the last remaining militant and terrorist stronghold in Syria. That's as US President Donald Trump urges Russia and Iran to call off liberation efforts in the region. Well, RT's Daniel Hawkins joins me in the studio with more on the situation there. Daniel, thanks for coming in. It looks like the rebels are preparing for war.
Yeah, it certainly does. Idlib's, of course, controlled by a whole patchwork of rebel and terrorist group. It's the last rebel terrorist stronghold in Syria. The other areas have largely been liberated. The fighters in that area have made it clear that they will fight, that they will repel any offensive by Damascus to retake the area. This is what they had to say.
We're getting ready to face the violent Russian-Iranian campaign, hand in hand with our revolutionary brothers. We're preparing our people to be determined on the front and to stand up to the offensive.
We are preparing for any actions by the regime. We train with all types of weapons.
Now, some of the rebels there are the so-called moderate opposition, which, of course, have existed, do exist. The protests, obviously, began peacefully. But the key problem, of course, in Idlib is the driving force, the main fighting force there are Tahrir al-Sham, former Jabhat al-Nusra. This is an organization that is Salafist. They have committed many acts of barbarism and are recognized indeed as terrorists by both the US and Russia, something they can agree on. Of many things they do disagree on. They have made it clear that there will be no surrender, no negotiation with Damascus, and anybody who negotiates, lays down their arms or even tries to leave will be seen as traitors and will suffer the consequences. And Staffan de Mistura, the UN negotiator, has made clear this group is not a minority in Idlib. There are a large number of these foreign fighters that are present in that province.
Idlib has another fact, and we have to recognize it, an extremely high concentration of foreign fighters. The estimates of the Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, whatever name they want to call themselves, is more or less around 10,000 of them.
With so many foreign Salafist fighters in the area who are refusing to leave, to surrender, to negotiate, it does seem increasingly likely a military solution to that specific area is inevitable. Damascus has been pulling up forces there, with other forces present, of course, as well. Turkish military advisors, American military advisors, well, in the region. It does seem increasingly likely that shots will be fired.
So what's the view from Washington when it comes to this battle for Idlib?
Well, I mean, Trump has tweeted recently. He's warned Assad against what he described as a reckless attack on Idlib. He's warned Russia and Iran to stay away, to stay clear and not get involved. The Russian foreign minister, however, has called on some sort of cooperation here to separate those terrorists from moderate armed opposition. This is what he had to say.
President Bashar al-Assad of Syria must not recklessly attack Idlib province. The Russians and Iranians would be making a grave humanitarian mistake to take part in this potential human tragedy. Hundreds of thousands of people could be killed. Don't let that happen.
We are now doing all we can, along with our Turkish and Iranian colleagues and the Syrian government, to separate the armed opposition from the terrorists in the area, to ensure that civilian lives are spared in any military operation.
We have had similar calls from Moscow before, and indeed there have been agreements in other parts of Syria where rebels and terrorists have been separated, and terrorists, in exchange for allowing civilians to leave, to lay down, for them to lay down their heavy weaponry, have been bussed into Idlib, hence the concentration of Salafist fighters in that area. Every time, though, Washington has been quite reluctant to do this. This may be down to a number of factors, perhaps because they're closely intertwined through alliances, military alliances on the battlefield. Damascus claims a moderate opposition doesn't even exist. There is various takes on why this has happened. The Syrian government has made it clear they're going to retake Idlib. They're going to get rid of the terrorists in that area, describing it as a tumor of growth that needs to be cut out. The terrorists have made it clear there will be no talks with Damascus. They will die there. They will die fighting. No negotiation at all. Now, the Iranian foreign minister has arrived in Damascus to meet Syrian officials as well. The Russian Reconciliation Center in Syria is involved in those talks as well. they will lay the groundwork for the next round of Syrian peace talks. They'll probably take place on Friday in Tehran, hopefully with some sort of solution as to how to make a breakthrough and avoid what could very sadly be a civilian bloodbath.
Indeed, all hopes are on those Friday talks. Thank you for those details. That's Daniel Hawkins. Well, RT spoke exclusively to the Syrian foreign minister about the fight against jihadists in his country.
There have been no secret meetings because in that case, a number of questions arise. What's the benefit for us from such encounters? Is the administration trustworthy? Does it really stick to its obligations under the concluded agreements? Absolutely not. The U.S. administration has demonstrated its blatant hostility towards Syria since 2011, when the crisis began, without any encounters or contacts. It has provided Jabhat al-Nusra with weapons. First of all, the international community should recognize that Idlib province is Syrian territory, and the Syrian government must regain full control of it. Secondly, as President Assad said, our priority is to liberate Idlib, either peacefully, which we prefer, or using the military. Thirdly, it is clear that Jabhat al-Nusra is listed as a terrorist organization by the United Nations. On this basis, I can say that if military action is considered necessary, it would be only to counter Jabhat al-Nusra. Those groups who are in favor of a settlement deal should voice their position and meet their commitments in terms of reconciliation. It's illegal. No one in Syria demanded such a presence, and the legitimate government in this country has a staunch stance towards such a presence. It treats it as illegal. The U.S. came to Syria to play a leading role in the final decision-making, and that role, doubtless, is hostile towards the interests of the Syrian people. That's why we call such a presence illegal. And we're fighting against such a presence. And as time goes by, it's the U.S. presence that's hindering conflict resolution.